So Tempelhof Park, for a little background. It is located in south central Berlin at the site of the former Tempelhof airport, which was made famous by the Berlin airlift following the blockade in 1948. And in 2010, it was designated a city park. It's about the size of Central Park in New York City. It comprises, Tempelhof Park comprises grassy, wild fields, bike trails, running paths. The runways have been turned into tracks in a sense. Its defining characteristic is the wide open space. There's enough space there to enjoy the sunshine on a nice spring day among neighbors while still observing social distancing. It truly has become, in my opinion, the site for experimental socialization in Berlin, by which I mean questioning and exploring potentials in relationships with nature, with the city, with the community, with oneself perhaps, but most important, to reconsider, reimagine what it means to live in an urban space. The old terminal, so these buildings that exist are still there. The old terminal has been used since the closing of the airport, different purposes. Fashion and design fairs have been hosted there, music festivals, conferences, other both commercial and public events have taken place. In 2015, an important part of its story, 2015, the infrastructure of the airport was repurposed to serve as temporary emergency housing for refugees, which became the largest facility in all of Germany. So Berlin wants to build, and since the fall of the wall, at least, it actually goes back further, but for our purposes, let's just focus on this. Since the fall of the wall, developers have been just feasting on the city's low prices and ever-increasing popularity. So in this area around Tempelhof Park is just primed for gentrification. The neighborhoods are made up mostly of communities of color or multi-generational working class families and students. In 2014, the city decided to start exploring development, or to make public its exploration of development of Tempelhof Park, and threatening, with some of these plans, to privatize parts of that space, but also during construction at least, to make the entire area completely inaccessible to the public. So citizens became angry, and in typical German fashion, I'm happy to say, they became engaged. They got involved. Signatures were collected for a referendum called 100% Tempelhof Field, which meant that 100% of that space must be open and public space forever. And the local government responded with compromise plans, one saying that they would just build around the park, and another one saying they would just build maximum 25% of Tempelhof Field would be privatized or commercialized. One thing to remember, the infrastructure, the structures on the field are part of that. So when they say 25% of the total area, the percentage of the green space was actually much higher. Nonetheless, it was all moot. The citizen initiative succeeded quite handily. More than 64% of Berliners voted for the 100% option to maintain Tempelhof Park as a completely open public space. But what I find most fascinating and important is that in the neighborhood surrounding the park, over 77% voted to keep the Tempelhof Park permanently green. The experiment that is Berlin, as that continues, we'll see more and more resistance to commercial and private destruction of these open spaces.